Walking Dead.
Well, that was nice and civil. Starting off on a good point. I think this is the perfect kind of franchise to have completely polar opposite opinions of. Because you're dealing with how connected you are to certain characters. I remember when the first season came out, I would talk to people that were like, I played it, I didn't really like any of the people. I'm like, well, you live on Mars. I don't know how you could possibly not be invested in some point of the story, especially a character like Clementine. So I'm not surprised. This is, as editor-in-chief, though, congratulations, Ben. My first tweet that I ever got that was like, what the heck's up with that review score was for you.
Sure.
For part 5, wrapping up season 2 of The Walking Dead. Not a huge fan. Probably one of the reasons I think, just assuming before you get off and running, is because you do care so much about Telltale and you care so much about these characters and the series that you hold it in high esteem and you want it to meet a certain bar. And it didn't. So I'm curious for you to kick it off. Whoa.
Spoiler disclaimer.
Yes, definite spoilers.
No holds barred.
Yeah.
No holds barred.
So wait. Give him a moment to stop it watching. And now, go.
Yeah, so what you're saying I think is absolutely true, and it's going to sound like an excuse, but I don't think that's a shield for any of my criticisms. Like, sometimes I read game reviews, and I'm like, I don't know how they feel about this game. They're just sort of telling me about what it is, not how they felt about it. And something that I really wanted to get across in the Walking Dead reviews, and you kind of mentioned this, is you can tell when I'm enamored with something. You can tell when I'm angry at something. I'm really angry, and I think the people that weren't angry at those things responded to that. And I was kind of all over the place with this season. I was looking back on all the reviews, and it was like, Episode 1, 9. Episode 3, 6. Episode 4, 9.5.
Yeah.
Episode 5, 6. So it was definitely ups and downs, and I think that contributes to the overall feeling that I have about the season, where I feel like it's inconsistent. There are things, I wouldn't say that I don't like season 2. I don't think that's true. It's just, there are things I think they could have done better, and I wasn't as attached because of those inconsistencies.
I agree with you. I do find that the quality differs from episode to episode, but sometimes I think that's just because this is an overarching narrative. So you're going to have the climax at some point. So maybe episode 2 isn't going to be as fulfilling as episode 3. And that being said, episode 1 of season 2 was much better than episode 1 of season 1. Like, it gets you. Maybe it's because you know the characters, you know the content, what it's going to do.
Absolutely.
But what were the high points of the series for you?
The high points for me, so episode 1 was a high point for me because
too.
I really liked how they developed Clementine. I think one of the biggest questions you had at the end of season 1 was, once you found out they were putting Clementine in season 2, is like, where are they going to go from here? How old is she going to be? How is she going to interact now that Lee's not around? What are they going to do? In episode 1, for the most part, Clementine is on her own, and you have to see her overcome these trials. And the way that they set up these scenarios, it's really powerful. It's really moving because when she gets bit by the dog, and she runs into this group, and she's hoping that they will help her, but they don't know her. They don't trust her.
They don't coddle her.
They don't coddle her, and so you have to. You see this moment where she's stitching up her arm by herself, and they don't shy away from it. They don't cut away. It's just you see all the nastiness.
It's painful. I had to look away every time I drove that needle into my arm.
I hate to use this word because it's overused in game journalism vernacular, I guess, but it's really visceral. It's a visceral way to represent that growth, and for me it was super powerful.
You see a total evolution of Clementine. That's what I loved about her, because in The Last of Us there's a similar relationship between Joel and Ellie, though Ellie she just enters as this really tough little girl, but Clementine is kind of this fragile. She's this fragile, like, little flower when episode 1 starts, and then by the end of season 1 starts, then by the end of season 2, she has totally evolved. She's toughened up. She's matured. You see a complete change of character with her. When you look back to season 1, and she's grossed out by slathering the zombie or the walker goo on herself. But then in season 2, she just says, this is what we have to do. This is how we have to survive. Like, that to me is character evolution, and I love Clementine. I love Clementine older more than I did the sweet little Clementine that we all loved and wanted to protect.
Now, I have not played at all of season 2. I finished season 1. I haven't touched season 2. I
Yeah.
kind of like to step back from these anything that's like part of a complete package. I like to wait for the package to be done and then just like fly through it all at once.
And that was how I played it.
Can you choose to make her passive? Can you make her not that, determined and proud and brave and heroic?
A
can
lot,
a
a
bit.
lot of the decisions that you get with Clementine is the way I would categorize it would be you can either make her very sympathetic or unsympathetic, where there are times where Clementine sort of prioritizes logic and reason over saving someone. Like, we could go help this person, but it would put the rest of us at risk. Or they did do this one wrong thing once, so it would be bad to keep trusting them. It would be bad to give them the benefit of that. So it's sort of like that. But along with what Elise was saying, I think perhaps something I was disappointed with in season 2 is sometimes I got the sense that they didn't know exactly where to take Clementine, and I kind of understand that to a degree, because in season 1, I think the sort of father pseudo daughter relationship is a lot easier to handle than this girl growing up in this post-apocalyptic situation, because there would be times where Clementine would still sort of act like a kid, but then there would be times where she was doing everything for the adults.
Oh,
like I pointed
she
that out
does
in
everything.
season 3. It's like
She does
like
everything.
we
Need somebody to shimmy up a drain pipe. Call Clementine.
Right. And
She's constantly in danger.
I sort of felt like there was this conflict in making her appear more mature and more powerful, but sometimes I think they went a little bit too far to where it wasn't very believable anymore.
Totally wasn't. Like, you get to a degree that these adults are all hardened and they don't want to treat her like a little girl. They're thinking of themselves and their own families. But would they really just send out a little girl like that to go, like get a walkie-talkie or start a... Like, you don't, to a degree, believe that they would actually do that.
Have you guys read the comic at all?
I read the first volume.
Yeah, that's about my experiences with it as well.
I read a lot of it. I think I got up to volume like 12 or something before, of like the big, volumes when they would release those. And the one thing that strikes me is way different from the comic than the television show, the live action television show, and having these games is having them broken off into seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read the comic book, so much of it was already out that it was just kind of like this ongoing slog for me. There weren't these ups and downs, kind of predictably knowing like, well, something big's going to happen because I'm getting near the end of the chapter. It was just this long marathon of survival. And it was emotionally draining, but also satisfying because I really felt like I was following these people. They were not presented, unlike the TV show, where they all have to be beautiful all the time. Like, it was not that way. They all looked, it was just done in black and white. They all looked like they really needed sleep. They really needed a shower. They really needed a warm bed. Do you think they're going to run into trouble if they want to make this a long show because they're stuck with this girl, they're stuck with this one character, they have to make each season, each 5-chapter arc mean something and be special in its own way? Are you worried about season 3? Like, what do they do? Where do you go with her there where they haven't gone before in these 10 full episodes that they've already released?
To me, looking forward to season 3, I think about a teenage Clementine, and Clementine maybe meeting someone and falling in love and then having to make the ultimate choice between survival and somebody she cares about, or, I mean, which she's already done to a degree. But, I would love another season. I don't know about you.
Do you think it would flip the script if you start season 3 totally brand new character? And maybe, like, in the part of the first episode, that person bumps into Clementine. But so again, you're not making the same... It's one thing to make the same decisions. I mean, they're all, like you were saying, the same decisions. It's like, do we save this person or that person? Do we go this way or that way? And it's just how they creatively frame each of the scenarios that makes it feel like it's different or pulls at different parts of your heart or your brain. Do you think it again, they're kind of retreading old, familiar territory if they're having it be the same character, if they maybe have focus on somebody else? Or do you just love Clementine so much that's like, it's got to be her, they got to focus on her?
You're getting into one of my biggest problems with The Walking Dead, and this extends beyond just the game. So when I watched, I really liked seasons 1 and 2 of The Walking Dead television show, and then I didn't like season 3, and then I liked season 4 even less, and I'm kind of getting some of that in Walking Dead season 2, because the way that Walking Dead establishes itself is it has to kill off major characters all the time. It makes the world more believable if you don't have those untouchable heroes, right? It makes me buy into it more. And so in season 1, there would be times when characters would die and I was like, oh my god, like it was fresh. I was like, I can't believe that they did that, because stories are largely told the same way. We're not used to the rug being pulled out from under us, right? I think that's why so many people like Game of Thrones. But you also run into this problem where when you're constantly reintroducing new characters and then you see similar things start happening to them, it's diminishing returns, right? And so I would be worried about a new character because you can already kind of tell that story right now. It's like, okay, this new character, she's going to struggle, and then she's going to find a group, and then the group doesn't trust her, and then there's political drama within the group. Like, there were a lot of beats in season 2 that were so predictable it was frustrating. And I think what Walking Dead needs is that level of unpredictability, which I think is interesting. And maybe Clementine being a teenager would be an answer to that.
To me, there are those predictable beats and situations that are just they're retreading the same thing. But I still find myself, when presented with a situation where I have to make a choice, I'm sweating. And I'm pausing the game, trying to determine what I'm going to decide, and if this is actually if they're giving me the illusion of choice, or if this is a choice I'm doing that's going to have ramifications that affect the rest of my playthrough or not. And to me, that's still, and maybe I'm just a simpleton and I like these kind of games. But to me, that shows the merit of it. An entertaining game, to say the least.
It's not often you play a game and you're constantly, damn you, game, for making me do this. It doesn't happen a lot. You're usually fairly confident. Even in something where it's like you're going to be good or evil, it's like you make that choice at the beginning and then you just ride that throughout the course of the game. We are running long for your typical report, which is good because we're covering a lot of content here. To wrap things up, how did yours end? And how were they different?
Sure.
I think I got the worst ending.
I played through it twice, so it ended 2 different ways.
What were your endings?
The first ending I got, I couldn't bring myself to kill Kenny. So man, I feel so bad for saying, even though we had a spoiler disclaimer, I feel so bad for saying this. He killed Jane, and then he comes over, and you can make the choice whether to leave with him or to go off on your own. And I was like, no, Kenny, you're insane. And Clementine was off on her own. The final thing that you see is she's walking with a baby, and a horde of zombies are in the distance, and she smears zombie guts on the baby and herself and proceeds forward. The other way that it ended is I killed Kenny, and I went with Jane, and we went back to our old shelter, which in season 3, where Carver was hiding out, and we run into a group of a family, a father, a mother, and a son, and you have to decide whether or not you want to let them in and let them use the shelter, and I decided to let them in. Those were the 2 endings that I saw.
So I got your first ending, because I couldn't kill Kenny either.
Right.
God damn it, Kenny! I couldn't kill him.
Kenny's so frustrating to me.
I knew that he had gone off the deep end, but I was still defending Kenny till the end of that game, just because I couldn't. To me, he's also just a sad figure that I just have way too much empathy for Kenny, that I was like, I just can't leave Kenny. And
I want to have empathy for Kenny, but I don't.
At the end, I said, I can't go with you, Kenny. I can't spiral out in whatever you're doing. So I went on my own, but I looked up all the endings and I looked into it, and your second ending was probably one of the better ones, because there is an ending where you go with Kenny and you get to Wellington, the town that you were intending to go to, and it is a really fortified, safe place, but they're full, so they tell you you can either come back, check back in, or you can say goodbye to Kenny there, and go in, and he tells you he's glad that you are leaving him, you're going to have a better life, and
Man, even you just explaining it, again, I haven't played a lick of the season,
Yeah.
even you just explaining it now, I'm like, oh god.
So
But you're down for the next season. I mean,
Absolutely.
You think they can always turn it around.
Absolutely. There were things about season 2 that I really, really loved, and I think it says a lot about Telltale and how good they are at presenting stories, where more so than a lot of other games, I'm interacting with these characters. I put myself into the situation. If somebody did this to me, how would I feel about it? Mm-hmm. And because you're allowed to make choices, and because your own personal opinions are going into those choices, you're going to feel dramatically different. Like, you're going to feel different than I feel about it, and I'm going to feel different than she feels about it. And that's why I think it's important to get together, because I might see something as disappointing, but you may not have even encountered that
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Your score demonstrates that, Ben.
Right.
They broke the mold with you as far as Telltale is concerned. I know it's emotional, but I appreciate you guys talking
it
about
is.
I have something for you, Ben.
Oh, yeah.
Present
She has
to
something
you.
to present to me. I don't know if
Since
I don't know if I'm worthy of this.
You've had a lot of flack because of your reviews.
Yes.
So I wanted to present you with this.
My two favorite pals.
There you go.
Look at this.
There you go.
To
Ben
demonstrate
Moore.
your
Did Christmas
hardcore
come
commitment.
early?
We'll turn it towards the camera, yeah.
Ben Moore, great reviews on Walking Dead.
Well, some might say not.
Definitely heartfelt, much like the series.
Heartfelt, that's true.
You're like my Clementine.
Can we get a
Oh.
fancy painting now for every single report? That'd be really
Yes,
good.
yes, we need to now.
All right, time to wrap it up. Thanks,
All
guys.
right, thanks.
Come on. They don't look armed.
This your place?
Yeah, it is.